Recently, I finished my first ever playthrough of the game Kero Blaster, and I found the game to be as quaint as it was intense. The cutesy, low-fidelity pixel art helped to enhance the deceptively simple run-and-gun platforming. The music was also chock full of catchy chiptunes. Of course, there wasn't any way I wasn't going to like this game, as it was the first major project from Daisuke Pixel Amaya since the indie classic Cave Story. The real surprise should be that I've only just recently gotten around to playing it. It came out almost 6 years ago at this point. What took me so long, and why now? I think part of the reason why it took me so long was because I was worried about having sky-high expectations. Gero Blaster isn't as grand in scope as Cave Story, and maybe I just needed some time to come to grips with that. As for why I played it now, well, recent events brought Gero Blaster back into the forefront of my mind. Events regarding the indie game company Nicalis. To give a brief rundown, Nicalis is an independent game developer / publisher. It was founded by Tyrone Rodriguez, who got his start in games at companies like Atlus and IGN. They got their big break by releasing a remake of Cave Story to Western audiences back on WiiWare in 2010, and have also been responsible for all the game's subsequent ports, as well as a bunch of other indie games. For a while now, however, they've been in some hot water. Nicalis has brushed up against controversy a couple of times over the years, but none of these events compare to the one that began on September 12th, 2019, the day Jason Schreier published his expose on the company's CEO. I highly recommend reading the article. It's a great piece of journalism, but if you want to take my word for it, let's just say it doesn't paint Tyrone Rodriguez in the greatest light. Citing evidence of racist comments and chat logs, mistreating employees, and completely ghosting indie developers after making publishing deals. This expose brought umbrage with Nicalis into the mainstream, which led people to talk about some of the other terrible things Nicalis, or rather Tyrone Rodriguez, have done in the past. Which leads us back to Cave Story. Apparently, one of the many offenses Tyrone is responsible for is tricking its sole developer, Pixel, into signing the rights of the game over to his company, giving Nicalis permission to do whatever they want with the IP. To any fans of Pixel and his work, this is pretty disheartening information to hear. But is it true? Over these past couple of weeks, I've been compiling information on this rumor, and so far, I've come up empty-handed. It seems strange that so many people are confident that this is what happened, and yet there's nothing to back it up. I can somewhat understand this rationale, as the Schreier article and other stories about Nicalis likely left minimal doubt in people's minds over these claims being false. But just because they may be guilty for one thing doesn't mean they're guilty of another. I'm going to go over the major accusations that have been thrown Nicalis' way regarding the treatment of Pixel's intellectual property, and show you all what I found to be true, false, and inconclusive. Before I begin though, I want to make this 100% clear. This video is not a total vindication of Nicalis or Tyrone Rodriguez. I do not condone his actions. Regardless of what he has done to Pixel, he has mistreated not only his employees, but potential business partners, as well as made unprofessional and offensive remarks part of his vernacular. Not to mention, his public apology barely covered the major accusations on display in the article. Some of you may be wondering then why I would even try to disprove rumors that make him look bad. The reason is simple. Regardless of how I and others feel about the man, it's important to stick to facts, or at the very least stories that can be corroborated when exposing someone to be harmful to those around them. If you let rumors mix in with the truth, it ends up poisoning the well and obfuscating the facts. I believe this is what has happened here. Now, let's finally address the accusations. Number 1. Pixel has not made any money on the Cave Story ports. I want to address this one first, since it's the easiest to disprove. A fan approached Pixel on Twitter when the 3DS eShop port of the game was released, asking if he would be receiving a cut of the profits. Pixel responded saying that he did. Tyrone has also gone on record saying that Pixel receives money from the Cave Story releases, but considering his track record, it's understandable if you choose not to take his word for it. Now sure, this is only confirmation that Pixel receives money from the 3DS eShop port, but I believe it's safe to assume that if he makes money from that port, he gets money from the other ones as well. At least the ports prior to it, anyway. Number 2. Nicalis has stolen fan mods for their ports. This is one complaint I've heard for a long time now. The story goes that Nicalis took code from fan mods like the boss rush mode and put them in the retail releases of Cave Story without permission or credit from the original developers. From what I can find, this only appears to be half true. Nicalis did use fan mods for additional modes, but they were willingly sent in by the authors and used with permission. The creator of the Sanctuary Time Attack and Nemesis challenges spoke up about this. The boss rush mode is a little trickier. There's a poster on the Cave Story forum that says the author, Serious Face, allowed them to use his work, but this is secondhand information and I'm not comfortable claiming it as 100% valid. It is worth mentioning that I've never seen the original author come out and claim their work was stolen. It is unknown whether or not they have been compensated for their work though. Number 3. Nicalis has abandoned the Steam port of Cave Story. The Steam version of Cave Story is the first ever instance of Cave Story Plus, which is a port of the game that has updated graphics, additional music, and those bonus modes I mentioned earlier. Since the game launched back in 2011, one of the achievements was bugged so that it wouldn't unlock when the requirements were met. A few months ago, Nicalis finally patched the bug that caused the achievement to not unlock. However, this took years and years of neglect before it was properly addressed. There have also been reports that the game will close itself when one of the challenges is completed. I tested this out myself, and sure enough, it's true. To add fuel to the fire, when the Switch port of Cave Story Plus was released, it launched with neither of these bugs and even had more features, like animated character portraits, widescreen support, and local co-op. None of these features have made their way to other versions, likely as a way to garner interest in the Switch port specifically, which commands a much higher price tag. The physical edition of this game makes the inflated cost a little more reasonable, but it's the exact same price digitally, so it's still kinda egregious in my eyes. It's frustrating that Nicalis has left this version of the game high and dry, and it would be wise to give the Steam port parity with the Switch version. Possibly as paid DLC, but I think they would garner much more goodwill with the community if they released it for free. The Switch port is almost 3 years old at this point. A majority of its sales have already occurred. I doubt this would affect their bottom line. Number 4. Nicalis tricked Pixel into giving away the rights to Cave Story. Okay, this is the big one. I have a lot to unpack here, so bear with me if this drags a little. The general narrative seems to go as follows. When Tyrone approached Pixel and offered to remake Cave Story for WiiWare, he had Pixel sign away his ownership of the Cave Story IP. Pixel cannot do anything with the IP anymore, which is why we've never seen any sort of sequel to the game. He also cannot speak out about this due to being locked down by a non-disclosure agreement. This betrayal led Pixel to get his next game, Kero Blaster, published by Playism, a publisher based out of Japan. In recent times, there have even been people who connected the dots with this theory to the plot of Kero Blaster. Possibly one of the earliest mentions of this theory comes from a blogger by the name of Luka Étoile, who graciously let me cite her post in this video. Give the article a read as it does a good job summing up the theory in its entirety. But to give the cliff notes, she theorizes that the hero in Gero Blaster is meant as an avatar for Pixel, and the company that the janitor frog works for is a representation of Nicalis, exploiting the poor frog and working him to the bone. Some have even expanded on this, noticing that the president of this company doesn't even speak the same language as the hero. So, that all sounds pretty conclusive, doesn't it? It seems all but confirmed, and it's no wonder why so many people believe this to be the truth, myself included at the time. This was the catalyst for getting me to finally get off my ass and play Kero Blaster for myself, and back in September, I finally did so. When I beat the game though, I noticed something interesting in the credits, which was pretty much the start of this whole investigation for me. Under the special thanks for this game, Tyrone Rodriguez is listed. Now, I could see someone interpreting this two different ways, either as a genuine thank you for helping to popularize his previous game in the West, or as a sarcastic thank you for inspiring the events of the game. I do think it's incredibly fishy that all of these dots can be connected. I really do. But I also think it's almost equally as strange that all we have to go on with the narrative that Nicalis stole Cave Story is conjecture. Remember that Kotaku article from earlier? Jason Schreier responded to someone bringing up this theory by saying he couldn't find any proof that it was true. You might be asking then, well, if he wasn't screwed by Nicalis, why did he have Playism publish Kero Blaster? First off, early on, it seemed Nicalis was in the cards to publish Kero Blaster on the 3DS, known as Gero Blaster at the time. Tyrone posted a tweet of him playing the game on the handheld. It has since been deleted, but articles reporting on it haven't. The reason why Nicalis wasn't chosen could be because Playism is based out of Japan instead of California, making it easier for Pixel to negotiate with them. As for the events of Kero Blaster, before Pixel became a full-time game dev, he worked as a salaryman. Recently, Pixel was interviewed by One Print Games, where he was asked if the story was meant as a more personal one or a critique of Japanese work culture. Pixel was pretty coy about this question in particular, saying that people should interpret it how they please. This doesn't exactly confirm or deny anything, but I think it's important to mention. If Nicalis had stolen Cave Story from Pixel, then why would he choose them to publish his other game, Ika-chan, on the 3DS in 2013? If they stole Cave Story from him, then why does he follow not only Nicalis, but Tyrone Rodriguez on both his personal and Studio Pixel Twitter accounts? Why does he still engage in friendly conversation with Rodriguez, the man who supposedly stole his work, or have pictures with him as recent as 2014? Why would Pixel personally sign copies of the Switch port of Cave Story for Nicalis? The original freeware version can be found on Playism's website as well. People say that the reason we've never seen a sequel to Cave Story is because Nicalis owns the IP. However, if Nicalis did have full control over the Cave Story IP, wouldn't it make sense for them to make a Cave Story 2 themselves? After all, their port of Cave Story is one of their most well-known games. It put them on the map. A sequel would most certainly make tons of money. Instead, it appears they're at the whim of Pixel, who has said several times in interviews that he wasn't interested in making such a game. Even though many developers have come forward and said that their experiences with Nicalis were negative, there are some developers who haven't experienced such horror stories. I'm not trying to downplay the bad things Nicalis has done here, as a reminder. But creators like Freakzone Games and most prominently Edmund McMillan were completely unaware of Nicalis' wrongdoings. It seems Tyrone thought it was best to keep Ed in good graces, and it's possible Tyrone could have done the same with Pixel. We don't know for sure, of course, but we can't rule it out. Personally, I used to think that Nicalis had stolen the Cave Story IP, but after doing research for this video, I'm not so sure anymore. It feels inconclusive. Sadly, this is going to stay inconclusive so long as Pixel, Nicalis, and Tyrone remain silent on the issue. Really though, there's only one person who can truly clear the air on this, and that's Pixel. Any statement from Nicalis or Tyrone wouldn't be taken seriously in the slightest thanks to their past actions. Regardless, Nicalis, if you're watching this, and I have a feeling that you are, then I would implore you to explain yourselves. Radio silence doesn't work when you're already embroiled in several other controversies. Make a blog post, reach out to some publications or something. People shouldn't have to dig through Twitter threads to get to the bottom of these things. And viewers, if you're still here, I'd like it if you spread this around to raise awareness about this controversy. I've learned while making this video that there is a lot of misinformation about Nicalis and Cave Story online. Also, while I don't think Nicalis stole the Cave Story IP from Pixel, I understand if you're hesitant to buy their games. Remember, Cave Story is freeware. You can go on the Playism website or cavestory.org and play the original release without spending a cent. And if you want to support Pixel, you can always purchase Kero Blaster instead. There's even a physical release currently available for the Switch. It's a little pricey, but it comes with a bunch of other extras, so if you're feeling generous, pick that up. Hopefully, if anything comes out of me making this video, it's that the truth about what happened between Nicalis and Pixel is revealed. Once again, I would like to thank Luka Étoile for allowing me to source her blog. I would also like to thank the Cave Story Engine 2 Discord for helping me find sources about the extra modes in Cave Story Plus. I'd like to thank Super Something Zero too. He helped compile a Twitter thread with all the concrete information regarding Pixel and his relationship with Nicalis, as well as provide me with additional information that he managed to find by scouring the net. Without him, research on this subject would have been significantly slower and less thorough. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for hearing this out. I usually try to avoid heavier topics like this, but I felt the need to speak up about it, even if it might not be what most people want to hear. I'll be back soon with something more light next time. Until then.